Mirrors and Dreams, Book 2 of the Unseen Scar series, written and narrated by C.R. Saxon. Chapter 34. Nothingness filled him, a nothing so complete there wasn't room for despair. Okay. There was only one option to stop the destruction, the deaths, the lies he'd set in motion that'd grown out of control. Classes just started. Neither of his suite mates would trouble themselves over him. He convinced John he had a massive project and not to bother him this evening. There was plenty of time. This was the only option. Even if he hadn't earned it. His heart, it hurt, it stung, it burned. Constantly it felt on the edge of disintegrating into ash. Since this was all the suffering he could offer, he did nothing to stop it. I'll suffer till the end. Taking a glass from the cupboard, Ferdinan poured in a little water from the sink. Then he took it to his room and placed it on his desk. The container from his pack was small, but its contents were potent. It wouldn't just kill him, it'd dissolve him into nothing, with the right concentration. He needed to suffer, but no one could find him here. I deserve this. It's the only way to pay for any of my sins, no matter how little. Measuring out the powder, it didn't seem like much, but the spoon didn't fare well when he mixed it. Watered down milk, that's all this was. That's all. A sharp burning stabbed his chest, forcing tears to his eyes. Finally. The cup moved closer to trembling lips. It's finally over. I'm finally free. I'll never pay for my sins, but at least I won't commit any more. He just had to hide the corrosive powder, lock his door, and step into the tub. That's all. The drink would do the rest. You aren't doing that. Exhausted, Zephyr hobbled out of his room. Ferdinand's door's open. What's he doing here? His cousin rarely spent time in the suite. The elf's question drifted through his mind. What will I do? Swallowing hard, Zephyr considered it. He needed to fix this. But how? Action. Leaders take action. As he approached, Ferdinan opened a container and mixed some of the white powder into a glass. That's new. Infected blood streaked down his cousin's head, and the hole eaten clean through the skeleton's chest writhed. Stepping back, Zephyr observed silently. This is wrong. Or am I? Do I need to stop this? What is he doing? With bated breath, he watched Ferdinan remove the spoon. Or what was once a spoon. What? He needed to move, needed to do something, but he didn't know what. None of this made sense. Why would a scientist take something like that out of the labs? A stick-thin arm waved the glass around, constrained by too small clothing. His cousin lifted the glass to thin lips. I'll never pay for my sins, but at least I won't commit any more. A bony hand reached to close the bedroom door. I'm not seeing this. This isn't happening. This can't be happening. You aren't doing that. Jolting back, Ferdinan nearly dropped the glass. Why? Shocked disbelief filled Zephyr, driving him forward. Nearly transparent blue crystals tripled in size. The glass hit the desk, tottering on its edge before deciding it wouldn't spill after all. Those selfish, lifeless eyes bore into him. Zephyr felt his breathing become quick and irregular. He recognized the failure in them, but there was something else. Why would you do this? I feel like that too, but I'd never. How selfish are you? Think about someone beyond yourself. I thought there was hope for you, but no. No! You're worse than ever! Red tinged the room. The prince felt his veins would burst. Lurching forward, Zephyr grabbed the skeleton. Pulling Ferdinan away from the desk, he threw him to the ground. Leaping on top, he rammed a fist into his younger cousin's face. Again and again. I'll soften your head. I'll make you stop this. How dare you? How dare you? How dare you hurt our family? Hurt me. A sob escaped him. Please stop this. It's always... Zephyr blinked. It's always been this way. And he failed every time to change it. Pulling his cousin up, he drove the unnaturally tall skeleton against the far wall. Ferdinan didn't resist. His cousin just allowed him to smash that too-thin neck into the wall. His pulse is like a bird's. Claws tore through his heart, his very soul. There Ferdinan was, in his grip, yet it felt like his cousin was being swallowed up by an abyss, one Zephyr was powerless to overcome. Why? Grabbing the tinkerer's too small shirt, Zephyr pulled his cousin so their faces were inches apart. Their eyes met. All the fire turned to ice. Those eyes... They're begging me. They want me to kill him. He wants me to kill him? All the tension left Zephyr's body. Horror and shock filled Ferdinand's countenance, pleading the prince not to stop, not to give up, telling him it was the only way. I see. I'm not seeing what I say I am. It's not selfishness, and I can't fix this. No more. Voice high, Zephyr released his cousin and stepped back. How can you want that? His hands moved roughly, nearly as uncertain as the rest of him. I don't care anymore. Do this selfish thing. Be your usual selfish self. No one ever wanted you anyway." Before he left, Zephyr rammed a hand through the wall. He didn't stop when choked and battered words screamed out behind him. "Why? If no one wants me, then why does it matter? Why?" Golden fingers clawed at his hair. Zephyr screamed. What happened? He can't possibly. Painful thoughts surged through him. There wasn't an object in his room that was safe from his wrath. He kicked over the nightstand, shattering the lamp sitting on top. A hole exploded through his armoire. The desk was ripped from its spot to fall forward, taking a glass and plate and screen with it, and adding more shards to the floor. Throwing knives embedded in walls. The mattress was torn and tossed aside. Everything. None of it survived. The final act of his dying tantrum was hurtling his pillow against the bathroom door. Panting, goo filled him to bursting, as if someone were pumping it in. What is this? Whatever it was, he was useless to stop it. The prince was entirely out of his element. He sat on his bed frame, the only thing that survived, and cradled his head. What am I supposed to do? I can't tell anyone about this. What am I supposed to do? He stopped himself. Good. If only he chose better words. But Oya couldn't fully fault Zephyr. Those words reflected how deeply he felt. They provided an opportunity for a new lesson as well. After he stopped tearing apart his room. While Zephyr calmed down, she tended to her friend. Ferdinan laid motionless on the floor, curled into a ball. How did I let this go so far? Black swirled among the green, discoloring his soul. His heart wept again, and the belly wound was rotting. Uncertain about what came next, Oya sat beside Ferdinan and muffled his will to do anything. Neither did she move until Zephyr's door opened 2 hours later. From behind, she tapped his shoulders, making him jump. Who? Golden hands danced, 2 fingers swaying side to side. You're the girl I saw him running with. Indeed. She smacked him upside the head. What was that for? Startled, Zephyr stepped into a defensive stance, but stopped when he realized she wasn't going to attack again. Telling a person who wants to die to kill himself is the same as murder. Excuse me? I watched the whole thing. Surprise lined Zephyr's tight face. Onyx eyes looked up before dropping to the floor. He drew a line across his chest. You're right. I'm sorry. There are so many invisible seeds. What? Good and bad. The bad ones are infesting you. Reaching in, she latched on to his need to confide, to speak, to be heard. But there's a good seed desperately trying not to be choked out. It's the same for him. You're his friend? Yes, he's my dear friend. I'm sorry, but he's always wanted to die. That's why I hate him. He's always wanted to die, and nothing I did ever changed it. Zephyr's face twisted, begging himself to stop, but his hands and tongue kept moving. I hate him for what I've done to him. I hate him because it was easier than hating myself. You don't have to stop hating him. You can continue as you always have, Oya tested. A bitter tear-stained laugh rang out. I drove him to this. There's no repenting for such heinous. Oya grabbed his hands and forced him to look straight at her. Stop, or you'll become just like him. That'd be sad to see. Not particularly. What kind of general will you become if you allow this to eat away at you? I shouldn't be general. Then who would be? He says it's a position for a prince, not a lord. Zephyr froze at those words, his eyes doubling in size. That's why? Your life's not your own, Zephyr. She repeated the elf's lesson from many months before. Running away, using this as an excuse to hide, that's not taking responsibility. Then what do I do? The prince held out his hands, shaking them. Freakishly green eyes sparkled. Taking responsibility hurts. Admitting to hard things, or holding your tongue when necessary. But if you want to become a man who deserves to be called general by millions, and cousin by one, start now. The golden boy withered. Looking at her was too painful. I don't deserve to face him. It's not about you. Oya turned him toward the huddled Ferdinan. As a general, it's never about you. And this, right now, it's not about your needs and desires. It's about him. What does he need? You're taking pleasure in this. Zephyr sniffed, trying for a light-hearted complaint. Greatly. Thanks. Tapping his chest, he walked over and knelt beside his cousin. Ferdinan didn't flinch, just stayed curled up in a ball. What'll you do, dear friend? Oya released his will, slipped into the shadows, and watched. Glazed-over blue crystals came to life, spilling out blood when they connected with Zephyr's. Scrambling back, Ferdinan placed 5 paces between them and brought his face to the ground. I'm sorry. Zephyr closed the space between them, bringing his head down just as far. The damage I've done. There's no fixing it. But I am sorry. Ferdinan stuttered, fumbling for words. Zephyr interrupted him. It's not your fault. What I did to you was wrong. I don't know how to do anything right. But maybe. I'll start with one simple command. I expect you. I beg you. Ferdinand stayed frozen, eyes on the floor, at a total loss. Live. The flat of Zephyr's hand tapped his chest before balling into a fist and pointing upward. Neither boy looked at each other. Neither could stand seeing what they'd done to the other. And Oya was the only one who realized. Neither boy could breathe. Ferdinand because of all the horrible things he'd done to hurt his prince, and Zephyr because he'd broken his cousin irreparably. Both boys knelt, saturated with dark emotions. All of this is new to them, isn't it? Does either know how to express what they feel, think, fear? Oya watched Zephyr's lips move, searching for words. Is this something I can teach? Ferdinand, I command you to live. I command you not to die. Silence stretched forever until a strangled "why" clawed out of Ferdinand's throat. Because I want you to live.